lounge today. City lights flashing, can't stop the glow. Feet on the pavement.
What's up? What's good, jobbers? It is your boy BQ. It is the lounge. We're going to talk TNA Impact from January 22nd, 2026. I'm giving you a Monday podcast, not the normal Tuesdays like I typically do. I almost got this to you guys on Saturday. Oddly enough, so I take my son to see his girlfriend every other month, and she lives 4 hours away. So we alternate. Her parents bring her 1 month, I bring her the next. And I was like, you know what? I lugged all my podcast equipment. I said, you know what? We're going to do this in the hotel. Bam, bam, bam. Man, I laid in that hotel room on Saturday like the fattest, laziest piece of shit you could even imagine. I just had a long week, rough week at work, you know what I'm saying? And I just sat there and did nothing, man. So but I am giving it to you guys this week on Monday. We're going to talk the number 2 episode on AMC. And we're going to get into it one time for your mind, like we always do. Did TNA bounce back this week on AMC? I think it's a resounding yes. I think it's a yes across the board. Anyone who watched this episode said this was much, much, much better than the episode they debuted with. Now, I probably took it the easiest on TNA out of everybody. And I'm the critical one, right? But I took it easy on everybody. I took it easier than everybody and didn't really think the show was as bad as people said it was. Now, for a big debut on a new network, yeah, at that point, I agree. It did not live up to par, but it wasn't the terrible episode of wrestling that everyone's saying it is, like Brian Last, who podcasts with Jim Cornette, said, like it's bad. He said something like TNA is bad for wrestling. That's a fucking stretch. You know what I mean? Like when you don't watch the show at all, and then you're like, okay, let me watch this debut, and you see this episode. Is it bad for wrestling? I can't agree with that. He did make a point that TNA just doesn't have an identity. And, that kind of lines up with what I always say when they have an episode that they expect to have extra eyeballs on. It's like they get away from what they do and try to highlight the WWE guys that on their roster. You can even look at that NXT episode where you've got the Elegance brand, longest reigning tag team champions. And instead of highlighting that on NXT, they're like, let's get the titles on the Inspiration because they know who they are. You know what I'm saying? Like that is getting away from your identity. That's not establishing an identity. That is just trying to appease a certain audience instead of, like what I always point out, instead of showing what you can do and showing what TNA is all about. So, was it a bomb last week? And on many levels, yes. Was it the shit episode people said it was? No. I can't see it like that. But I took it easy on them. People look at me as a lot of people look at me as the negative voice covering TNA, but now I think you are really seeing who the negative voices are, because there's a lot of these much larger podcasters than myself, larger websites, obviously, that cover a lot more ground and have more reach than I do. You're seeing where the negativity truly lies, because they're getting on there and saying this is the worst wrestling show in the world, big piece of shit. I don't do that. You know what I'm saying? I'm just pointing out from week to week, month to month, the small details that I think they need to improve. And when they don't improve it, it bothers me. It pisses me off. You know what I'm saying? Because I've been doing this, reviewing this show for many moons now. And when I see the same issues month to month to month to month, yes, I start getting a little pissed off after a while. But at the end of the day, I only want what's best for this company and best for this show. So we're going to get into this episode. And real quick, this past week, I did give you guys on the channel a little more content than I normally do. Usually I just kind of review the show due to time restraints, but I found some time to give you guys some other opinion pieces and all that. And I'm hoping that might be able to do that more going forward. So my daughter actually moved out, and her room is available. The only problem is that it's this like anime haven of figurines and posters and all that shit. I may ultimately move in there as an office. And if that's the case and I have a little more privacy, I can probably give you guys some more content. So we'll see if that happens. It's going to be kind of a pain in the ass for me to get from downstairs to upstairs and set up and all that. But I might do that to try to get you guys some more content, and it would actually help me with reviewing the show earlier. You know, I really thought I was going to get you guys a show on like Saturday or Sunday. I was so pumped to do it, but I had to be a dad and get my son to Bakersfield. But like I said, I just got there and I was so effing tired. The things we do for our kids. I wanted to go to the Clippers and Nets game more than anything this weekend. And anyway, enough of all that. Let's get into this episode of TNA Impact.
TNA Impact. Oh.
All right, so they have a new song that they kick off the show with. I don't really like it, but I think universally people seem to like it online. When I say I don't like it, I don't mean that's the next thing I'm going to complain about. It's the next wheel on the night. That's not at all what I'm saying. I don't care for it, but it's not annoying to me. It's not something that if I watch it every week, I'm going to be like, oh, get this song off my screen. For me, I wasn't really feeling it, but I think a lot of people, for the most part, kind of dug it. We kick it off within seconds. TNA's letting us know that we're going to have sound issues again.
Oh.
All right. I've said this to you guys. Man, okay. First of all, I have been talking about the audio issues since I can remember. I can't even remember a time where I wasn't talking about the audio issues. And people came at me like I am complaining about the show. All right. Now here we are, AMC, audio issues, 2 episodes in a row. Same people are now complaining, so I don't look so crazy. And now, again, those voices that cover much more ground than I do, now they're complaining about it too. So maybe I was kind of onto something this whole time, trying to hold them to a certain standard when it came to production, right? Maybe, just maybe, I was onto something. Within seconds, there's microphone issues. They sound like they're talking in a public bathroom. Hannafin's. I liked where they were standing on the side of the ring. I thought that was something different. It was just presenting the show a little differently. Kind of like the USC broadcast. USC, yeah, Fight On USC. No, UFC broadcast team might be standing outside of the cage, to do the interviews and all that. So it was something different. But within seconds, Hannafin sounds like he's talking in a public restroom. Ray Wall sounds even worse on his microphone. And then 45 seconds into the show, we get future TNA television legend Carlos Silva.
All right, we're going streaking. Bring your green hat. Let's go.
We are inching every day closer to him being a full-time contributor to this television show. I'm telling you, I've told you guys March. We're gonna go with March 30th. All right, we're gonna go with the end of the month. My prediction is by March 30th, he is on every single episode of TNA. So this guy wants to be on TV. It is very, very clear. It is coming. And I know he's like harmless at the same time. Like he's not taking over the show by any means. Like someone to point out, I was like, dude, you see this guy's face and you start losing it. I don't got no issue with the dude. He's been pretty good for TNA so far, but I just don't want to see him on TV. That's all. That's it. He doesn't need to be there. He doesn't need to be on TV. Let's get into this, though. A little bit of wrestling for that ass. Mackenzie Mitchell, bring us in, baby. All right, so the first match on this comeback episode, because this definitely was a comeback episode. This is what TNA should be. It had swerves, it had cliffhangers, and I understand you can't necessarily go to that extent every single episode, but it shows when you put some effort into your show how it's received. What was the first match on this thing? Cedric Alexander.
My name is Optimus Prime.
And he took on Moose.
Damn you, Moose.
So, from a match standpoint, this was obviously excellent. It was the kind of the fallout from Genesis, because they were in the three-way with Joe Hendry. Now, something I have to point out, because I have to be consistent and I have to admit when I'm wrong about something, or have a, where I think something's going a certain direction and it ultimately doesn't. So I was really, really critical of a few things out of Genesis. Okay, I said Genesis was a great show, but there was a few things I was critical of. Number one, Ash by Elegance on the panel being a babyface. Okay, now I kind of see why. Joe Hendry beating Moose and Cedric Alexander. Now I see why. And man, I think there was a third, actually. I'll come across it if there was. If not, but there's a couple things that when it played out on the show, I said, man, they were really 2-3 steps ahead of us. We're just so used to paint by numbers booking that we don't see the swerve sometimes. And those are the best kind. That's why it's got people talking, because no one saw what they did on the episode. And they still kind of played the story out of Genesis into this. So it's just, again, it's unfortunate this wasn't the episode last week. And who knows, what the reception would have been if it was. There's probably some people who are going to still hate the show no matter what. But yeah, it's too bad. We're going to see as of right now, Monday morning, I'm speaking to you, I haven't seen viewership numbers. I don't think they're out yet, but we're going to see. We're going to talk about it, of course, on the channel. So this was a really good match. Moose came out with his old music, which is already kind of foreshadowing that he's not going to be in the system anymore. So that was cool. That was fine. And because that music is over, it helps him get over when he's wrestling by himself. Alicia coming down doing the Moose thing really reminded me of Ring of Honor when Veda Scott used to come down with him. Just, I don't know, similar vibe. But yeah, really, really good opening match. This is what you should use to grab the audience attention. Cedric Alexander ultimately wins this thing. And then after this, we get cutting a promo in the ring, Mike Santana.
Yo soy tu papá.
And it's a good touch for him to sit down on the chair. It seems like such a small detail, but if he came out standing, holding a microphone like everybody else does, he would just be everybody else. So this is just kind of a different wrinkle to the character, and cut a good promo like he always does. Always comes from the heart. I was very concerned after Bound for Glory that he was going to still go back to the, my daughter and this and this. He's been doing a lot better than I thought. I mean, I always know he's going to deliver a good promo, but he's been doing better in the sense that he's not recycling material. He's finding new material from week to week, and he played a voicemail from his father. That might be the new thing, the father. He's used that before, like in AEW. I think when he had I think it was an eye for an eye match or something. I think he wrestled. I think him and his opponent both had eye patches because they had injuries or something. And I think that's when he first kind of started talking about his dad on TV, who I think he said was blind. So the father might be the new wrinkle in things, but he's just doing much better than I thought he would, just because I was very concerned he was going to recycle material, because you can only take the daughter stuff so far. Gia Miller's backstage.
I will kill you.
And she was with the Order 4. And this was really different too, because since it's a live episode, her doing the interviews backstage, much like WWE's interviews backstage, because they're doing the interview and you can hear the audience and they're reacting to what's going on. Very, very different element. Mustafa Ali was basically bullying Gia Miller. I thought this was good. I think every time Ali speaks, it comes off good. So to have talking segments of Mike Santana and Ali early in the show, that's That gives some authenticity to the show rather than listening to people cut fake promos. So good stuff. They showed an NXT clip after this because we knew that Elegance brand was going to defend their titles against whoever won this four-way on NXT. I mean, anyone with a pulse knew that what do they call him, Zol Ruka, where we just combine names like every other tag team in wrestling. If you had a pulse, you knew they were going to win this fucking match because they were on Genesis and they were on the last episode of the year, I think, to challenge for Genesis. Or no, they were on the AMC debut to challenge for Genesis. So if you had a fucking pulse, if you were breathing, you knew that those two were going to win the match and take on Elegance brand. That was something you could see about 10 miles away. Oh, after this, we had the personal concierge in the ring.
That's my dad. But don't worry, he's cool.
Really? He doesn't look cool.
And we are getting ready to have a knockouts match. So if you're going to have a knockouts match and you're going to try to attract some potential new viewers, and by Elegance is someone I think you got to have on there. I've told you guys, and by Elegance.
I keep dreaming, envisioning these long legs.
And it's thinking of Susan Anton or what? What's the deal with that?
I've told you guys, I think she is the best wrestler on the roster for the females. I think she is easily the best. I think she's easily number one. Usually I would always throw that to Tessa Blanchard, but I think M by Elegance by far is the best. And so she is one-on-one. She has got, of course, in her corner, Heather by Elegance.
He has an erection.
Yeah. That's all her fault.
And Mr. Elegance.
Why are you gay?
And then, of course, she's got, we'll play a soundbite a little bit later, but she's got Ash by Elegance with her as well. And when I talked about Genesis and she was on the panel and she was a baby face on the panel and I thought it came off terrible, now you kind of see where they were trying to go with it. They're trying to swerve you, all a little bit rushed. They could have dragged this out, but whatever. All a little bit rushed, but they're trying to swerve you that she's retired, so she's kind of the good guy. But when she's with a girl, she's kind of a bad girl. But they could have done a much better job telling the story. But I get what they were trying to do with it. And by Elegance opponent was Indy Hartwell.
How long did it take you to learn English once you got here?
It was really easy because we speak English in Australia, you fucking idiot.
She got a good match out of Indy Hartwell. That's why M by Elegance is the best female wrestler on this roster. But they had a very serviceable match. And I always enjoy matches where the two wrestlers are about the same size, same height. I don't know what it is. I just always like matches like that. And Indy Hartwell's about her height. And overall, they put on a pretty good match. The weird thing that was going on during this match is they kept trying to stomp Indy Hartwell's feet, and I didn't understand what that was about. Like M tried to do it at least twice during the match, and then Heather was trying to stomp on her feet on the outside. I don't know if it was supposed to be like, hey, let's do this so we look like bullies, and it makes Ash, who's trying to prevent us from cheating, look good. Because throughout the match, Heather kept getting involved. And Mr. Elegance was getting involved. And Ash was trying to be like the voice of reason on the outside, And you knew it was going somewhere because Hannafin was taking it that direction, Telegraph and Tom if you really listen to him, he's always going to tell you what's next or what they're doing. He does not know how to lay in the background and act shocked about anything. He just kept, what she's doing? What is she doing? She's retired. Okay, let us know that 50 times throughout the match, fucking Tom, so that we know there's going to be some other angle after this. But there was a lot of interference, again, stomping on the feet. Didn't really understand what it was about, but it was their way of trying to get Ash over as a sympathetic figure. And again, it didn't really work because it was all really, really rushed. What they were from trying to get to point A to point B over the last couple of weeks, it was really rushed. But I do see where they were going with it. Ultimately, big shocker, Indy Hartwell wins the match because anytime a Knockouts tag team champion wrestles one-on-one, they lose. And we obviously know that Indy Hartwell, they're going to continue to push until she's ultimately the champion. I'm sure she's going to feud for the belt here at some point with somebody. I don't think she'll win, but it kind of seems like they're going that direction. I need to come out and say it, Mr. Elegance.
Why are you gay?
Like, he's unnecessary. The character is unnecessary. Now that the group is bigger, like he's more of a distraction than anything. I remember that from days of watching AEW, that when they had stables, usually only like one guy would come out to the ring, like the early days, because you start putting 4 or 5 people outside the ring, it just becomes like a huge mess. And I think they're like that now. I don't know because I don't watch it like that, but it's too many people outside the ring. He's distracting, like he's not in the background. I don't know, man. Like it's not hitting for me right now, but of course I'm going to give it a chance. But after this match, Indy Hartwell wins. They attack her after the match, and then Ash is trying to break it up and is kind of yelling at Em and Heather, and Em by Elegance pushes her. And Ash by Elegance, drop the soundbite.
Come on, Teddy. Come on, Teddy.
Kind of backs up, and then the music hits, because the music always has to hit first. And it is Laying Lee and Queen of the Rubber match Zaya Brookside, and they come running down. Indy Hartwell gets up. It looks like it's a 4-on-4, which is not very fair. You got Mr. Elegance and the personal concierge on one side, rounding it out to make the 4. And then Ash attacks, I think, Laying Lee from behind, and then Elegance brand lays them out. And Ash hits Laying Lee with a really nice DDT. And when she hit that DDT, all I could say was, the Danny Luna push is over. We already got Elena Black there. And now it looks like Ash by Elegance getting back into the mix of things. So TNA is going to do everything in their power to make you forget about Danny Luna here very shortly, I can tell. And I didn't write it down in my notes, so I don't know at what point this happened, but I'm just going to fast forward when the Elegance brand had their promo backstage. This was what I found to be one of the more negatives of the show, is that I guess Ash is back. She's like back in the ring, but the way they delivered that information was not effective. Like Maggie was saying, "Oh, you had me fooled," and Ash said April Fools. So that means Elegance brand wasn't even in on it. It would have made a little more sense if they were acting, if everyone was acting, but that means M by Elegance really did push her. So wouldn't that mean there could be some, future dissension in that group? Do you understand what I'm saying? Like if the Elegance brand would have been on the same page as Ash, it would all make sense. But they didn't. She was like surprising them. But in doing so, Maggie ended up pushing her. So I don't know if that's just like something we have to keep our eye on in the future. Like, is that going to cause dissension? But I just didn't think the segment was very effective. I thought it had a little too much cheesiness and a little too much bad comedy. It would have just been nice if Ash just straight up said, I'm back in the ring. But instead they just kind of implied it. Like the personal concierge was like, you're part of an elite group, or whatever he was saying. It was just a bunch of noise. It was a bunch of nonsense. It could have been a lot more effective. So we know what's happening. We know why Ash did what she did. Let's move along to my favorite part of the show. I'm fucking with you. The fake Bioflex report.
You have 24 hours to live.
24 hours?
Well, 22. I'm sorry I kept you waiting so long.
This is where they list off a bunch of wrestlers who are quote unquote injured, but they are also cleared at the same time, which would encapsulate Elijah and the Hardys. And it's like, the Hardys are banged up and bruised. Fuck, man. the Bioflex injury team. I went on the Bioflex website. There's no Bioflex team on site for TNA. I can fucking assure you. But yeah, Frankie Kazarian actually is out though, and TNA is actually pretty good about this. When the world champion drops the belt, they usually keep him off TV for a week or two, because this criticism I used to have watching Monday Night Raw was that on Sunday the world champion would drop the title. On Monday, the guy who dropped the title, the champion, would kick off the show and say, "I want my rematch tonight," and they would find some way to rush the rematch, and that just always bothered me. And it was always like they always just consistently did that. Where TNA is a little bit better with their world champion, not the other belts, but with their world champion, they'll kind of keep them off television and find a way to incorporate him back into the show. Because, if you're at the top of the food chain, you're the guy with the belt and you drop it, I just don't think you should just show up the next day ready to go. Like, I think you have to take some time to unwind and to reflect, genuflect. I don't even know what that word means. So I think they're probably just keeping him off TV for a little bit, which is probably a good thing for Bioflex. Okay, after this, we had Feast or Fired. I'm not going to run down every single soundbite because we would just be here all day. I'll drop a couple in here though. So we had Mance Warner.
Outlaw Mud Show Garbage Wrestler.
We had Ryan Nemeth. We had Big Boom AJ Francis. We had the Great Hand Jobs. We had the Hometown Man.
I don't know where the fuck you live.
We had Rich Swann. We had Eric Young, King of the Juice Cleanse. I almost called him the Queen. We had King of the White People, Eddie Edwards. We had Brian Myers. We had Steve Macklin. And then as a surprise, we had the returning Trey Miguel.
Is that Costanza over there?
So, yeah, I mean, if you haven't seen a Feast or Fire match before, there are, there had to be 10 people in this match.
I'm here for the gangbang.
And they're trying to get the briefcases because 3 of them have title shots and 1 has a pink slip. Okay. They typically exclude the X Division Championship from this. And man, I remember they said the digital media championship in this. And I'm like, imagine fucking putting your career on the line to be the digital media champion. But there's 4 briefcases. Ultimately, the briefcases are won by Eric Young, who Hometown Man got the briefcase, but your feet have to touch the ground on the outside. So Eric Young ended up getting that briefcase. So the Cleanse, which was on pace for 2032, we're still on pace for 2032. We're not taking any steps back yet. Eddie Edwards got one, and he did a very big babyface thing here where he threw the case to AJ Francis and then drop kicked him off the turnbuckle and then secured it. Steve Macklin got it, which we all expected, and then Trey Miguel did, of course. And man, it makes me wonder what the original plan was for this match. Who was supposed to be in this spot for Trey? Were they going to do a mystery person? Who was supposed to win that briefcase? Because usually they stick to the script. They don't throw swerves at us like that. So I would think it might have been Cedric Alexander's spot, which is why they ended up adding Cedric Alexander and Moose late to the card. I feel like that was Cedric Alexander's spot, and he was probably supposed to win the briefcase. But he's also trying to be X Division champion. And it also made sense for Moose and Cedric to wrestle each other at the top of the show. So I don't know. I'm curious what the original plan was. So if I had to take my guesses here, there's a chance Eric Young is fired, but Eric Young's been pushing this shirt, his Cleanse shirt, on social media quite a bit lately. Storyline, it would make sense that he's fired. It would delay the Cleanse until 2033 at a minimum, but it would make sense to where he comes back and with whatever he's doing for this Cleanse bullshit, it ends up happening. It just storyline, it would make a lot of sense for him to do that. to kind of, I don't know. I'm sure they can write him back into the show somehow. He tries to attempt to do some kind of takeover with whatever it is he's trying to do. You remember that they had Eric Young doing these promos outside and all this stuff about the cleanse. Now he just sounds like a crazy person. I mean, I guess he did before, but at least he had people in the crowd. Remember, he had like masked men in the crowd, and he'd be outside with the fans, and I think he was even handing out flyers at one point. Like they were putting some kind of effort into this cleanse thing. Now he's just a weird guy on the show talking crazy, So we'll see what happens with his briefcase. But although I can see him being the one fired, my gut still says Steve Macklin is fired. I would love to see him with a world title shot. That's probably not going to happen. International championship makes a lot of sense, but I'm excuse me, I'm going to say that Steve Macklin is fired. I'm going to say Eric Young has the tag team title shot. So whatever happens with the cleanse, he will. I don't know if it's going to be a stable. I don't know if it's a partner. It might just be him. It might be him. Maybe he's tagging with the Invisible Man. Maybe he's the only person involved in the cleanse. But I would imagine he's going to have some kind of partner. I feel like that's where they would go. Trey Miguel, I think, will be international champion. He really should have the world championship briefcase, but I think Eddie Edwards is going to get it. If Eddie had not turned heel at the end of the show, I would have said he'd be the international champion and Trey would be world champion. I think it's going to be Eddie. The only problem is this now muddies up the world title situation. If you've got Nick Nemeth with the gauntlet and then you have Eddie Edwards with the briefcase, I think that's very muddy. I think that's very it's very jumbled up. Like there's just too many cooks in that kitchen. It would make sense for Trey to get the world title shot because it doesn't really need doesn't need a storyline. He doesn't need some weird cash in. You feel me? So, but I just don't see them bringing Trey Miguel and all of a sudden he's number one contender for the world title. I see it more for the international championship. It might be their way of getting it off Santino when Santino ultimately wins it. And then he's just not Santino is not a wrestler anymore and Trey gets it somehow. I don't know. There's a few directions they can go, but we'll see. They haven't done this in a very long time. They had a very effective backstage segment, I thought, where it showed Mike Santana and Santino like fake watching the match. And because Santino's like acting like these moves are happening in the ring and there's actually nothing going on, but he's like all, I don't know how to explain it. Like he's kind of like wincing in the face and, acting like there's these moves going on and he's almost blocking his own face. So he's fake watching it. But Nick Nemeth came up and just really started establishing some heat. He of course, brought his daughter into it, but I'm talking about Mike Santana's daughter. But I thought they got some heat on Nick Nemeth very quickly here. I thought that I just thought it was very effective for the small amount of TV time they had. I thought they did a good job of building a little bit of heat between the two. And then it shows Nick Nemeth. He's very pissed off. He goes backstage.
I'm here for the gangbang.
And there's that's a wrong soundbite.
I've been talking to people walking here. We've been talking about next year, and I'm sitting there saying, I'm not gonna be here.
And he walks in on BDE.
Big dick energy.
And two other guys. One of them, Manny Lemons. Shout out Manny Lemons, who used to be part of the learning tree for Brian Myers. We have bullshitted a few times. So I sent him a message, said it was good to see him on TV again. It was very random to see him on there. And then the other dude, which it was an Asian guy. Was he that weird Asian dude that popped up saying he must save the Elegance brand or something? Do you remember that when they were doing the Mr. Elegance search a couple weeks ago and some Asian dude walks up and said, I must save the Elegance brand or something like that? It was just completely out of fucking left field. I don't know if that was him or I don't know. I guess I'm trying to tell you all Asians look the same. Shout out to my wife. But yeah, I thought this was effective also because they're playing video games, and Nick Nemeth walks up and he's basically pointing out, "Hey, guys like you, why aren't you watching the show?" It was almost like the Ric Flair and Carlito segment years ago, where Carlito was leaving and said, "You're not going to watch the show." Obviously, that was iconic, but this was very similar to, he goes up to BDE, basically he was calling him an experiment because he's the social media star. You know, didn't pay his dues to get here. You're not watching the show. You're just sitting here playing video games. Like, I think that is a way to approach the BDE character. And he's going to wrestle Nick Nemeth next week. I doubt it's going to be much of a feud or anything, but I thought it was a good way of putting this match together without just randomly throwing it together. Instead of Tony Khan, like, hey, these two guys are going to wrestle next week. Like, at least there's some kind of motivation for it. So I thought they did a good job putting that together. And then we had a promo by Elena Black.
I got a lot of discipline, but he 25-year-old with them big cans and that peanut butter skin.
And I thought this was the best promo she's ever done that I've heard. I've only ever heard her on, I mean, I think I've heard her once or twice on the little NXT I've watched, but I've only heard her on TNA. Whether it was backstage, whether it was with a microphone, like, she always sounded really phony, because everyone on NXT does once they get on a microphone. I thought she sounded a little more natural here than we're used to. Natural is a strong word with Elena Black, but I think she was a little more natural here. I don't know if NXT wants her to cut a certain type of promo. I don't know if someone in TNA guided her a little bit, but I actually thought that she sounded okay here. And they're doing a good job of not rushing her into the ring or rushing her into the feud. I mean, she clearly wants to be the Knockouts champion, but it looks like they're kind of taking their time with that a little bit. But I got to give some love, because I did think that promo was a lot better than the ones that she normally cuts. After this, there was a segment with Santino and Ariana Grace backstage where she apologized to him. Her acting was very good here. I was expecting her to kind of turn on him after that, but she didn't. But I do expect that she ultimately does. But whatever it was, whatever she was selling, Santino bought it. So I'm interested. It's a cliffhanger. Like, it's a small cliffhanger, and maybe one that people don't necessarily care about, but we'll see next week, like, if she's going to turn on him again, or if she is now split between the two, between her father and between her man Stinks. So I don't know. I would say I would lean towards her kind of turning on him again, getting a little bit more heat, but I don't know. But I thought it was effective. Pretty much everything on the show was effective. It led, with the exception, like I said, of that Elegance brand backstage thing. I didn't think it was very good. Other than that, I just thought everything was in the right place. Everything was just effective. Everything led to, hey, what's going to happen next week? Like, that's what I want to see out of a show. I want to see some kind of cliffhanger. When I was watching a lot of AEW, I didn't get those cliffhangers. It was just like 2 hours of watching matches and then watching 2 hours of matches the next week as well. Like, that's what I kind of dig in my wrestling. That's what I want. That's what I want to see. So we get to the main event of the program. On one half, accompanied by the Order 4, we had Mustafa Ali.
If you vote for me, all of your wildest dreams will come true.
And represent the Hardys, we had Jeff Hardy.
My name is Jeff.
And of course, this was good because Ali will get a good match out of anybody. I thought it was refreshing to watch Jeff Hardy in a one-on-one match rather than in a tag team match, because when you watch the Hardys wrestle, they're going to play the hits one way or another, but there was just something about him just wrestling by himself and not doing the whisper in the wind and all that kind of crap we see the Hardys do. It was just a different way, just different element of watching Jeff Hardy wrestle, because they don't wrestle one-on-one a whole lot. Every blue moon, Hardy has a match. Jeff Hardy has a match, Matt Hardy has a match. For the most part, they don't. So the matches are laid out differently because at this point, you've seen one match, you've seen them all. When it comes to the Hardys, it's always kind of the same shit. So this was different, and I liked it. And of course, Ali is always excellent. Issue I had was the finish. Ooh, I almost went a whole show without coughing, and that shit hit me out of nowhere. We almost went. Oh, I'm just repeating myself. I'm sorry. What I meant to say was I had an issue with the finish of the match. Jeff Hardy misses the swanton. Very fakely rolls into position. And Mustafa Ali hits a clean 450 splash. Should have been the fucking end of the match. It's okay to make Hardy look bad for a second. Oh, fuck, he misfired on the swanton. Ali takes advantage. 450. But they don't want 2 tag team champions pinned on the episode. So what happens after the 450 is delivered? Jeff Hardy kicks out. For what? This is not a pay-per-view. This is not a title match. You're trying to protect Jeff. I get it. But every once in a while, the heel can just win. You know what I'm saying? Jeff Hardy kicks out. And then we get Elijah's music. And he distracts Ali. And then Jeff Hardy, I would assume, hit the... I kind of checked out at this point. I would assume he hit the fucking twist of fate and the swanton. Playing the hits. And Ali gets the loss. So, as I pointed out, so Genesis had a lot of heel victories, okay? But as I've always pointed out, heel victories don't mean anything unless they win the feud. So they can have some momentum. Ali beat Elijah at Genesis. Here is Elijah again because they're going to wrestle until Elijah wins. Same fucking thing with Rich Swann and AJ Francis. Great match. Great opening match they had at Genesis. AJ Francis wins. What's next for AJ Francis? Another match with Rich Swann, and it's no holds barred. It's a garbage match, and that's how Rich Swann is going to win. Because again, they have to keep wrestling until the babyface wins, and the heel ends up with no momentum whatsoever. We had a Righteous promo after this, the Righteous Brothers.
The Righteous are reportedly signing with WWE.
I didn't understand a fucking thing they were saying. No clue. Babbling about God knows what. They're going to continue wrestling the Hardys, of course. And then we had, who's the new member of the system going to be? They've been teasing this all episode. So the music hits, and we have the system.
I'm not a system player. I am a system.
And, this didn't go terribly long from a promo standpoint. But JDC is talking. The crowd is dead to what he's saying. And I actually felt bad for him. He paused a couple times looking for some kind of reaction, some kind of pop. And I don't know if it was just the way the crowd was mic'd, because even when Trey Miguel came out earlier, I was expecting this huge reaction. And it just on TV did not come off that way. Maybe in person it did. It didn't on TV. But JDC's cutting this promo to crickets for the most part. And then he kind of very unceremoniously announces the newest member of the system. And it's the only person on the roster bigger than Eddie Edwards. It is Bear Bronson.
If you ever see me fighting in the forest with a grizzly bear, help the bear!
And he comes down, hugs a couple people, shakes Moose's hand. And then Eddie hugs JDC. This happened very quickly. They didn't milk it or anything. He hugs him, and then he just nutshots JDC. And then Moose is acting really shocked and surprised. It was fake as a fucking $3 bill, though. I expect better from Moose, but he just had his hands on, what's going on? Or had his hands up and was like, what's going on? It was super fucking phony. So the segment could have been delivered a lot better. It could have been rehearsed better, I think. I think it came off like they made it up on the fly. Because again, you're going back to Eddie hugging JDC, and it wasn't milked or anything. He just nutshots him real quick, and then Moose gives a fake reaction, and then they all jump him. So as they're attacking him, Cedric Alexander's music comes down. Man, I wish this. I didn't know the results ahead of time watching this episode. I really would have. I wish I could have like related to how you guys took all this stuff in. But as they're attacking him, Cedric Alexander runs down. He has a chair. He's chasing these guys off. He just went to battle with Moose earlier in the night. It all makes sense. And then he hits Moose with the chair. And they continue to whoop their ass. And Eddie Edwards comes in a ring, so we didn't replace one member, we replaced two. And I knew some shit was going to go down with JDC. So I didn't know JDC got attacked. That part I didn't know. But Telegraph and Tom was like right when they got to the ring, Hannafin says that JDC went to war with his best friend Eddie Edwards the previous night. And remember what I told you guys. When you throw out that term best friend in wrestling, it means someone's turning. Okay? This is 100% accurate. This has never not happened in wrestling. So at that point, I was like, oh shit, they're gonna jump JDC also. So I didn't see that coming. So I don't know. It's weird. JDC handpicked Bear Bronson, but then Bear Bronson attacked him. So I don't know, but System is going back to being a heel. And I had been saying for a while, disband the System. They're old, they're unnecessary. And that I get it now. They're gonna freshen them up. It's the right time to freshen them up because they're getting bland. But I get it. They were several steps ahead of me on this one. I was sitting here saying, what are they going to do with the System? What is the point of the System at this point? They feuded with everybody. Now I said, there's a possibility someone in the group could break off. I don't know, but I didn't really see it. This is their feud. They're going to feud within the System. That's fine. It's not within the System because they've kicked Moose out. I guess Moose, I mean, if you go back to Genesis and him getting all the sympathy, like they were starting to build the real strong babyface singles guy Moose up again. Like great work. Genius. My hat's off to you. Okay? I'm not really going to take my hat off. I will give you one of those numbers. Genius work. Building Moose off as a sympathetic figure twice now. He's going to get huge pops going forward. They're going to boo the shit out of the System. And not Eddie, but Alicia Edwards seems shocked by all this. So is she going to remain in Moose's corner? Or are we're going to get the Eddie versus Alicia thing again? Alicia's a much better heel than a babyface. They really unlocked her. So I don't, but in this version of the System, she was a babyface. She wasn't so bad, but is it going to be her and Moose? I mean, it's really interesting. They gave us a real cliffhanger. They went off the show with the heels, and you don't always have to go off the show with the heels. I know I'm always pointing out that they need to more, but heels are what cause the cliffhangers. What's going to happen next week? The babyface getting his comeuppance is not a cliffhanger. That doesn't get you, excited for the match the next week. You want the heel group, the heel faction, the heel team, the heel wrestler, whatever, heel manager, shit, to be the one that gets the advantage. And then from the next week, you're like, what's going to happen? How's he going to get his comeuppance? This is going to be really, really big for Moose. Moose is going to get really, really big reactions going forward. I think the System's going to get a lot of heat. And it's a completely new version of the System. So the System that we know is dead. Where they're wearing the suits and all that stuff, that was because of Moose. Moose is out of that. Now we got two fat guys in the group, so they're probably just going to wear jumpsuits, track suits, whatever they're called. And I'm looking forward to it, guys. I'm looking forward to this next episode. They did a good job of hooking me. And I really am looking forward to seeing what is next for just about every single angle on here. They put real effort into the creative on this episode. They need to always put this kind of effort. I don't mean throw swerves every single week. We don't need surprises every single week. but we do need effort. And this was it. That's going to do it for me, folks. I am your boy, BQ. I'm out. Peace. Peace. I said peace.